Hollywood was left reeling after what was supposed to be a routine promotional appearance turned into a heated confrontation between late-night host Jimmy Kimmel and A-list actor Ben Affleck. What began as friendly banter quickly descended into a tense exchange that had audience members shifting uncomfortably in their seats and crew members exchanging worried glances from behind the cameras. The tension had been building from the moment Affleck stepped onto the stage. Kimmel's introduction seemed charged with passive-aggressive undertones, referencing Affleck's recent professional choices with thinly veiled criticism. Please welcome a man who can't seem to decide if he wants to direct movies, act in them, or just be Batman whenever the paycheck is big enough. Ben Affleck. Affleck maintained his composure during the walk to the guest chair, offering a tight smile and a brief wave to the audience. The initial small talk appeared cordial enough as they discussed Affleck's latest film project, a drama about a recovering alcoholic finding redemption through coaching a high school basketball team. So Ben, this movie hits pretty close to home. For you in some ways, doesn't it? Kimmel asked, leaning forward with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Well, parts of it certainly resonate with my own experiences, Affleck replied carefully. That's what drew me to the project. It's an honest portrayal of addiction and recovery. Kimmel nodded. Right. And I imagine it's easier to stay in character when you've got first-hand experience with the bottle. The audience's collective intake of breath was audible. Affleck's jaw tightened, but he maintained his composure. I think we all draw on personal experiences in our work, Jimmy. That's what makes performances authentic. Sure, Kimmel continued, seemingly oblivious to, or perhaps enjoying, the growing discomfort. But method acting only goes so far. I mean, you've been pretty public about your struggles. Must be nice to get paid millions to basically play yourself. The temperature in the studio seemed to drop several degrees. Affleck set down his water glass with deliberate care. You know, Jimmy, I agreed to come on this show to talk about a film that deals with addiction with nuance and compassion. Something that might actually help people who are struggling. I didn't come here to be the punchline for cheap shots about my personal life. Kimmel raised his hands in mock surrender. Hey, just trying to keep it real. Isn't that what your movie's all about? Being real? There's a difference between being real and being cruel, Affleck responded, his voice level but tight. And frankly, I'm surprised you don't seem to understand that distinction. The audience was dead silent now. The show's band leader shot Kimmel a warning glance, which the host pointedly ignored. Oh, come on, Ben. Don't be so sensitive. We're just having a conversation here, Kimmel said with a dismissive wave of his hand. Besides, you put it all out there for the public. Your divorces, your rehab stints. It's fair game. Affleck leaned forward. Is it? Is someone's struggle with addiction fair game for your entertainment? Do you mock cancer patients too? Or is substance abuse just an especially hilarious medical condition in your view? A few audience members applauded Affleck's response. Kimmel's smile faltered for a moment before he doubled down. Look, you Hollywood types want it both ways. You want all the publicity and attention when it serves you. But the minute someone points out the obvious, suddenly it's off limits. The obvious? Affleck echoed, his voice rising slightly. And what exactly is obvious about addiction, Jimmy? Please, enlighten us with your expert medical opinion. Kimmel smirked. Well, the obvious part is choosing to pick up that first drink, isn't it? No one forced you. The studio went completely silent. Even the production assistants were frozen in place, staring in disbelief at their host. Affleck's face had gone pale, then flushed with anger. Wow, he said quietly. Wow. That's an incredibly ignorant and harmful statement to make on national television. Oh, please, Kimmel scoffed. Everyone's so worried about saying the wrong thing these days. When did we all get so precious? It's not about being precious, Affleck countered, his voice steady despite his obvious anger. It's about understanding that addiction is a disease. Would you tell someone with diabetes they chose to have high blood sugar? Would you mock someone for taking insulin? That's not the same thing and you know it, Kimmel retorted. Actually, the medical community disagrees with you, Affleck said. But what do they know, right? Clearly you've got it all figured out from behind your desk here. The tension was palpable now. The show's producer could be seen frantically signaling from off stage, likely indicating they should cut to commercial. Kimmel ignored the signals. You know what I think? Kimmel said, leaning back in his chair. I think celebrities like to medicalize. They're bad behavior so they don't have to take responsibility for it. Must be nice to have that luxury. Affleck set his jaw. You know what I think, Jimmy? I think you're being deliberately provocative because your ratings have been tanking, and you're desperate for a viral moment. Well, congratulations. You'll probably get one. Kimmel's smug expression faltered slightly at the direct hit. My ratings are fine, thank you very much. Are they? Affleck asked, raising an eyebrow. Because I've heard otherwise. In fact, I've heard that the network is considering making some changes to the late-night lineup. But hey, maybe mocking addiction will save your show. Let's see how that plays with your advertisers. The audience let out a collective ooh at the pointed comment. Kimmel's face had reddened, and for the first time he seemed genuinely rattled. We're getting off track here, Kimmel said, shuffling his note cards nervously. Let's talk about the basketball aspect of the film. I understand you had to train pretty intensively. No, Affleck interrupted, holding up a hand. I want to continue this interview after what you just said about addiction being a choice. Do you have any idea how many people watching might be struggling with substance abuse? Do you know what message you just sent them? Oh, come on, Kimmel protested, looking increasingly uncomfortable. It was a joke. Was it? Affleck challenged. Because jokes are usually funny. What part of stigmatizing a disease that kills thousands of Americans every year is funny exactly? A tense silence hung over the studio. Kimmel shifted uncomfortably in his chair, caught between doubling down and backpedaling. The audience seemed to be collectively holding their breath. Look, Ben, Kimmel said finally, his tone condescending. Maybe you need to lighten up a little. This is a comedy show, not a PSA for substance abuse. Affleck's eyes narrowed. So mocking people's suffering is your brand of comedy now? Good to know. I'll be sure to pass that along to the other actors you're hoping to book. The threat wasn't subtle. In Hollywood, word travels fast, and Affleck's influence extended far beyond his own career. Kimmel's producer was now frantically making a slashing motion across his throat, but the host seemed determined to have the last word. You're overreacting, Kimmel said with a dismissive wave. And honestly, if you can't take a little ribbing about your very public issues, maybe don't put them in a movie and then go on a press tour. The audience gasped. Affleck stood up abruptly, removing his microphone. I came here to discuss a film that might actually help people who are struggling, he said, his voice controlled but trembling with anger. Instead, you've turned it into an opportunity to mock those same people. That's not just unprofessional, it's cruel. Kimmel stood as well, seemingly realizing too late that he'd crossed a line. Ben, come on, sit down. We still have the rest of the segment. No, I don't think so, Affleck replied. And for the record, my very public issues, as you call them, I've been open about them specifically to help destigmatize addiction and recovery. Something you've just undone in about 3 minutes of airtime. Kimmel attempted to laugh it off, turning to the audience. Is he serious right now? Can you believe this guy? The audience remained uncomfortably silent. Kimmel's forced laughter died in the stillness. Actually, I think they can believe it, Affleck said quietly, because most people understand that addiction isn't a punchline. From the wings, the show's executive producer stepped onto the stage, an unprecedented move that signaled just how far off the rails the interview had gone. We're going to take a quick break, she announced, her professional smile strained. No need on my account, Affleck said. I was just leaving. Kimmel, now sensing the damage control required, tried one last approach. Ben, you're being ridiculous. It was a joke, not a personal attack. Don't make this bigger than it is. Affleck paused, then turned back to face the host. You know what, Jimmy? That's part of the problem. To you, this is just a joke, a way to get laughs and clicks. To millions of Americans, it's their daily reality. And every time someone like you trivializes addiction as a choice or a character flaw, you make it harder for people to seek help. The studio was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning humming. Kimmel's face had lost its usual smug expression, replaced by something closer to panic, as he realized the situation was spiraling beyond his control. We can edit this out, Kimmel offered, dropping the pretense. Let's start over. Come on, Ben. Be reasonable. Edit it out? Affleck repeated incredulously. So you can say these harmful things and then pretend you didn't? No thanks. The audience heard what they heard. You said what you said. The executive producer stepped between them. We're cutting to commercial, she insisted, her voice leaving no room for argument. Fine by me, Affleck said, already walking toward the exit. I think we're done here anyway. Just to be clear, Kimmel called after him, a note of desperation. In his voice, you're walking out in the middle of the show? That's how you want to play this? Affleck stopped at the edge of the stage. This isn't a game I'm playing, Jimmy. That's what you don't understand. This is people's lives, including mine. The network feed cut abruptly to a commercial, but the studio audience witnessed Kimmel storming across the stage after Affleck. You don't walk away from me, Kimmel hissed, grabbing Affleck's arm once they were in the wings and out of the audience's direct view, though many could still observe the confrontation. Affleck looked down at Kimmel's hand on his arm, then back at the host's face. Remove your hand, he said quietly, or I will remove it for you. You think you can come on my show and make me look bad? Kimmel demanded, not releasing his grip. Do you know how many actors would kill to sit in that chair? Who do you think you are? Someone who doesn't need your platform, Affleck replied evenly. Now let go of my arm. Several crew members were watching in stunned silence. One of the cameramen had instinctively kept rolling, though they were off-air. You Hollywood elites are all the same, Kimmel continued, his voice rising. You use your problems to get sympathy and publicity when it suits you, then get outraged when anyone calls you on it. Affleck carefully removed Kimmel's hand from his arm. That's your last warning, he said, his voice low. Touch me again, and we'll have a different kind of problem. The show's security team was moving in now, unsure whether to separate them or escort Affleck out. You're finished in this town? Kimmel snarled, though the threat sounded hollow even. As he made it, Affleck actually laughed at that. Jimmy, I've been finished in this town so many times I've lost count, and yet somehow I'm still here. Can you say the same about your career right now? The barb struck home. Everyone in the industry knew Kimmel's ratings had been sliding for months, with rumors of cancellation growing louder. At least I don't need to exploit my personal problems for relevance, Kimmel shot back. No, Affleck agreed. You just need to exploit other people's personal problems for ratings. That's so much better. By now, several audience members had pulled out their phones, recording the backstage confrontation through the partially open curtains. Clips would be all over social media within minutes. The executive producer stepped between them. That's enough, she said firmly. Mr. Affleck, your car is waiting. Jimmy, we need to figure out how to salvage the rest of the show. There's nothing to salvage, Affleck said, turning to leave. But don't worry. I'm sure this will be great for your ratings. Controversy always is. As he walked toward the exit, Kimmel called after him. This isn't over, Affleck. Affleck didn't bother turning around. For me, it is, he replied, pushing through the stage door. The audience was buzzing now, many having witnessed the backstage confrontation. The damage control team was already in motion, but they all knew it was too late. In the age of social media, there was no containing this kind of meltdown. Within minutes, Kimmel's Affleck was trending nationwide. Clips of the on-air confrontation were already circulating, with the backstage footage following close behind. The network executives who had been watching the live feed were in crisis mode, frantically calling emergency meetings while their phones exploded with notifications. Back on stage, Kimmel attempted to salvage what remained of his show. The scheduled, musical guest had been hastily prepped to fill the time slot, but the audience's attention was elsewhere, on their phones, sharing what they'd just witnessed. "Well, that was something," Kimmel said as he returned to his desk, his trademark smirk replaced by a thin, strained smile. "Apparently, some people can't take a joke." A murmur rippled through the audience. Someone in the back actually booed. "Come on, folks," Kimmel said, his voice edged with irritation. "You know me better than that. I wasn't attacking anyone. If anything, I was just trying to keep it real." The uncomfortable silence that followed spoke volumes. Meanwhile, outside the studio, Affleck was approached by a small group of reporters who had caught wind of the confrontation. "Ben, what happened in there? Did Kimmel cross the line?" one called out. Affleck paused by his car, considering whether to engage. Finally, he turned to face them. "I think everyone who watched saw what happened," he said calmly. Jimmy chose to mock addiction, something that destroys lives and families every day. That's not comedy. That's cruelty disguised as humor. "Will you be addressing this further?" another reporter asked. "I didn't start this," Affleck replied, "but I think it's important to stand up against harmful stereotypes about addiction. 2. Many people suffer in silence because of the kind of stigma Jimmy was perpetuating tonight. So yes, I'll have more to say when the time is right." As Affleck's car pulled away, his publicist was already on the phone, fielding calls from major news outlets and planning their response strategy. What had begun as a routine promotional appearance had morphed into something much more significant, a public conversation about how addiction is portrayed in media. Back in the studio, Kimmel was wrapping up his show with noticeably less energy than usual. His closing monologue fell flat, met with polite but subdued applause. As soon as the cameras stopped rolling, he stormed off stage, ignoring his producer's attempts to speak with him. "Get the network on the phone," he snapped at his assistant, "and find out who leaked that backstage footage." "Jimmy," his executive producer said, following him into his office, "it doesn't matter who leaked it. It's out there. What matters now is how we respond." "What do you mean, how we respond?" Kimmel demanded. "We don't respond. This blows over in a day or two. It always does." The producer shook her head. "Not this time. This isn't a political joke that offended one side or the other. This is about addiction, something that affects families across the political spectrum. The network is already getting calls." "So what are you saying?" Kimmel asked, slumping into his chair. "I'm saying you need to get ahead of this. Issue a statement tonight. Maybe even an apology." Kimmel scoffed. "An apology? For what? Doing my job? Making jokes is what I do." "Making jokes, yes," the producer agreed. "Mocking someone's addiction, and then physically confronting them backstage? That's not in your job description." The reality of the situation was beginning to sink in. Kimmel's phone was lighting up with notifications, text messages from industry colleagues, many expressing disappointment. By morning, the story had exploded. Major news outlets were running the footage alongside commentary from addiction specialists and entertainment industry insiders. The overwhelming consensus was clear. Kimmel had crossed a line. The network released a carefully worded statement expressing regret for the unfortunate exchange and reaffirming their commitment to treating sensitive issues with respect. Conspicuously absent was any direct defense of their host. Affleck, meanwhile, had transformed the incident into a platform for a cause he genuinely cared about. In a thoughtful Instagram post, he wrote about his journey with addiction and recovery, the importance of destigmatizing mental health issues, and the responsibility of media figures to handle such topics with care. "Last night wasn't about me or Jimmy Kimmel," he wrote. "It was about the millions of Americans who struggle with addiction every day, often in silence because they fear exactly the kind of judgment that was on display. If you're one of those people, I see you. Your struggle is valid, and recovery is possible." The post went viral, with celebrities and ordinary people alike sharing their own stories of addiction and recovery. Mental health organizations reached out to Affleck, asking him to partner with them on awareness campaigns. 3 days after the incident, with the pressure mounting and advertisers beginning to express concerns, Kimmel finally issued a statement of his own. "Upon reflection," he wrote, "I recognize that my comments about addiction were insensitive and harmful. Addiction is a disease, not a choice or a character flaw. To those I offended, particularly those struggling with addiction, I sincerely apologize." The apology was met with skepticism by many, coming as it did only after significant backlash. Industry insiders noted it had been crafted by the network's PR team, not Kimmel himself. 1 week later, Kimmel appeared on his own show with a more personal address to his audience. "I've spent the past week listening and learning," he said, his usual sarcasm notably absent. "And I want to speak directly to those I hurt with my comments. I was wrong, not just in what I said on air, but in how I behaved afterward. That's not who I want to be." He announced that the show would be featuring a series of segments on addiction and recovery, working with experts in the field to educate both himself and his audience. Critics remained divided on whether the apology was sincere or merely damage control. What wasn't in dispute were the ratings. Kimmel's numbers had taken a significant hit, with many viewers switching to competitors who had publicly supported Affleck's stance. 2 weeks after the confrontation, Affleck and Kimmel met privately, at a neutral location arranged by mutual connections. No details of their conversation were made public, but sources close to both men indicated it had been respectful, if not warm. The following month, Affleck's film was released to critical acclaim, with reviewers particularly praising its nuanced portrayal of addiction and recovery. In interviews promoting the film, Affleck spoke candidly about his own experiences, while carefully avoiding any mention of the Kimmel incident. He had made his point and moved on. For Kimmel, the path forward was more complicated. While his show continued, the incident had left a mark on his reputation. Some guests were more hesitant to appear, especially those with connections to addiction awareness causes. His writers became more careful about which topics they targeted for humor. 6 months later, when the network announced a reshuffling of their late-night lineup, reducing Kimmel's 5 nights to 3, industry insiders recognized it as the delayed fallout from that fateful night. What had begun as a thoughtless joke had evolved into a significant moment in how addiction is discussed in mainstream media. Recovery advocates pointed to the incident as a turning point, when a public figure had stood up against addiction stigma in real time on a major platform. Sometimes, Affleck later reflected in a magazine interview, the most important conversations happen when they're least expected. That night wasn't planned, but if it helped even one person feel less alone in their struggle with addiction, then something good came from it after all. As for Kimmel, the incident became a cautionary tale in comedy circles about the evolving boundaries of acceptable humor. In a changing cultural landscape, his failure to read the room had cost him professionally. Perhaps most importantly, the confrontation had sparked a broader public dialogue about responsibility in entertainment, about the real impact of words that are dismissed as just jokes, and about who bears the consequences when those jokes punch down instead of up. In Hollywood, where image is everything and attention spans are short, few would have predicted that a single guest appearance could have such lasting repercussions. But some moments transcend entertainment, touching on deeper truths that resonate far beyond a late-night time slot. This had been one of those moments,